Hello everyone, and welcome to a retrospective on an expansion to one of my personal favorite games of all time, Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, its expansion pack called Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith. This game came out in 1998, about 4 or 5 months after Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, and kind of looking back at it, it does have a controversial take in the multiplayer community. There are 3 main reasons why it has a controversial take. 1, it does not have live-action cutscenes like Jedi Knight does. 2, it only has the option for 8-bit sounds, where Jedi Knight had the option for 8-bit and 16-bit sounds, 16-bit being a higher quality. Oddly, that was left out. And 3, the multiplayer community back in the Zone days tend to have a chip on their shoulder and would shun Jedi Knight players, and back then it kind of got a little heated between the two of them. So I wanted to go back and take a look at this and go over the differences between the two games. And after looking at the differences and all of those changes, I wanted to see if this expansion pack is a failure or is it misunderstood, and if it's worth playing. So let's go and take a deep dive over what is new in Mysteries of the Sith first. So, if we are to take this image here from LucasArts' old website, going over what's new in Mysteries of the Sith, and kind of use it as a general overview, we can kind of get an idea of what they had done in those 4 to 5 months to improve on Jedi Knight. So, the big thing is, storyline-wise, this is supposed to take about 5 years after Jedi Knight. Kyle Katarn is kind of teaching Mara Jade from the Timothy Zahn trilogy. And what's interesting is you start the game off as Kyle Katarn, and then you switch to Mara Jade after the first 4 missions, and you play as Mara Jade throughout the rest of the game. In here, you can see they have several new weapons, and all of them I will go over and talk about their differences. You'll see that they've also added 5 new force powers, but on top of adding the 5 new force powers, they got rid of light and dark, and they categorized them kind of like as a level 1 force power, level 2 force power, level 3, and level 4, respectively. And you're only able to pick so many from each of those groups. There are 14 new levels in single player, and they're all kind of broken up within their own type of scenario. You can kind of see they show scenario 1 and 2, but they don't show 3 and 4. But you get the basic idea that each levels are supposed to kind of follow a theme. So the first one is about the Rebel base defense, where you play as Kyle Katarn. Scenario 2 is where you're working for Kappa the Hutt as Mara Jade. Scenario 3 is when you're working for the Rebels as Mara Jade, and Scenario 4 is the Sith Temple, where you play as Mara Jade. The big change, though, and when Jedi Knight came out, one of its weak points, even though the game was considered, one of the all-time greats, one of its weak points was its multiplayer. The built-in default multiplayer maps, there weren't very many. So they took this to heart, and they really, really tried to revamp the multiplayer aspect of the game. They added a ton of levels, which is great, but they added something new called personalities. And I'm going to go through a breakdown of what each class can do. Now, they kind of show here in this diagram, you got Soldier, Jedi, Bounty Hunter, Scout. And that's correct. Now, they each do have their own starting weapon, and it says each will have their own health and movement characteristics. So yes, they do have their own health, and I'll go into the details over which ones have more, which ones have less. The movement, though, we just found out recently is not quite what they intended it to be, but we'll go over that as well. And then, they also mentioned the new game type, Kill the Fool with this Ysalamiri, and I'm sorry, Star Wars fans, if I'm butchering how to pronounce that. That's a really, really fun game mode that they added, and unfortunately it did not get a lot of love or playing back in the day, because if you were to go to the Masasi Temple or JKDF2.net and look at add-on maps, there's only 3 or 5 Kill the Fool maps that were added after the fact. And maybe that's because people were happy with the ones that were included and no one felt that it needed more, but I'm not sure. But that's the smallest category of add-on maps, is Kill the Fool, which is a shame because Kill the Fool is a lot of fun. They also talk about new engine features here, obviously the multiplayer game mode, cameras and security systems, which kind of looking back kind of surprised me because I thought for sure that there were cameras and security systems in Jedi Knight, but I guess there really aren't, maybe only in add-on levels. And then the new lighting features, which includes colored lighting, which in my opinion makes the game look awesome. And I can show you some before and after clips with colored lighting off and colored lighting on. So let's start off with the weapons. We're going to get some help here from the multiplayer community. Joining us on the weapons demonstration is NZ and Trent. So first off, we start with the fists. They are pretty much the same from Jedi Knight, but there's a big difference. Now you can choose between a fast left-hand jab or a strong right-hand punch. Strong right-hand punch doing more damage. Now I'm only going to cover the new weapons because all the other weapons are exactly the same in Jedi Knight. The next weapon is the Blast Tech, or the DL-44, which is kind of like Han Solo's pistol. That gun works very similar to the Briar pistol, except it has a charge-up feature. And as you can see here, when Nick blocks it, it's reflecting the 5 charged-up shots, which is kind of cool. Next up, the Stormtrooper rifle is the same, but there is a added scope for a sniper rifle, which does 2x damage. My favorite. Thermal detonators are the same as in Jedi Knight. As you can see here, I just took Nick out with a thermal. And here are the new ones, the flash grenades. Flash grenades are interesting. They do a little bit of damage, not much, but they can blind you. So if you don't have force blinding, you can always grab these bad boys. And here you can see it's used against me, and now I'm blinded. Thanks, Trent. The bowcaster and repeater are exactly the same, so let's skip to the Raildet, which now has a new companion version, which is the heat-seeking Raildet. Now Nick's going to run off and try to evade me, and you can see the heat-seeking Raildet will go after him. And Trent. We got to get him back for blinding me. Now there, it did not pick up a person, so it did shoot a regular rail, but after that, it picked up Trent. Now mines are the same. There is a new feature with them though, if you pick up any mine, and I'm going to show here how they work normally. Now when you press the same button again, you're going to get a remote, so you can manually control them, which is really useful if you don't have a lightsaber and need to open up a grate. Now, this is the big daddy of them all. This is the carbonite gun. Basically, you can freeze someone and then punch them, and it's a one-hit kill. You do have to be careful because shards of carbonite can come back and hurt you. Didn't do it here for me, but it's pretty common. A lot of people say that this weapon is extremely cheap and not fair, especially in multiplayer mode, but it is what it is, and there are ways to combat it. How do you combat it, you might ask? There are several ways. 1, super shield, obviously. 2, you can use force pull by pulling it out of their hands. Or 3, just keep your distance, because it has a very short range. Now, we're going to switch gears here and switch maps to a custom map. Reason why we're doing that is because there is actually another weapon that wasn't listed, and that is the stationary cannon. According to the manual, it is officially known as the RMF-31 Repeating Blaster Cannon. Now, as you saw, I just picked up some ammo for it. This appears in single player all over. A lot of maps have it, and in multiplayer, it wasn't in any of the official maps, but a lot of add-on multiplayer maps have this. It has 2 different fire modes, as you can see, rapid fire and then 4 shots at once. Reason why I bring it up is because, like I said, a lot of multiplayer maps, add-on ones, have it. And I think the reason why it wasn't officially included is, as you can see here, in third-person mode, it doesn't quite look right. I think that was kind of an afterthought. So you can see here, Nick and Trent are using it while I stand here, and you can see kind of what it looks like from the opposite end. This cannon is very powerful, and it can take out a lot of stuff very quickly. In single player, there's a map with Kyle Katarn where you go into a hangar, one of the asteroid hangars, and you can blow up the ships and a bunch of enemies. It's a really fun weapon to use, and I'm glad a lot of add-on maps have it. Now, one last thing I want to mention about the weapons is that the ammo now in this game is explosive. So any type of explosive ammo, as you can see here, I'm shooting the raildets, they become basically a trap. And in the raildet's case, it shoots off a rocket. Thermal detonator, same thing. It'll blow up, and then there'll be one loose thermal that'll be bouncing around. Same with the flash grenades. And basically any kind of explosive, mines included. But there's something interesting. On top of that, there's the carbonite gun. Let's say you don't have a carbonite gun. We're going to borrow Nick here again, and I'm going to shoot the carbonite ammo, and as you can see, it freezes him. In this case, it froze him and killed him because there was a shard that hit him. But we're going to do it one more time, and you can see here, I shoot it, and he gets frozen. Now, what's interesting is that if you notice, the one loose piece of shard is actually a thermal for some reason. Well now, this is a departure from Jedi Knight. As you can see, there are no light or dark powers. You get to choose in each category. Category 1, choose 4. Categories 2, 3, and 4, choose 2. And then at the bottom, you have defense. Defense isn't very useful for a Jedi. I'll get more into that later. So in category 1, the new power that's listed is push. Though technically speaking, push is in Jedi Knight, but you can't use it. I believe Gork can use it against you. Also in category 1 is projection. Projection basically makes a clone of yourself. It can be somewhat useful in single player, but in multiplayer it's not very useful since it's pretty easy to spot. Category 2, there's 2 new powers. There's Saber Throw and Farsight. Saber Throw works just as it sounds. You throw your lightsaber for a ranged attack. However, if you are not a Jedi, you can lose your lightsaber. Farsight is basically like you become a spirit and you can float around and explore the map. This isn't very useful in multiplayer, but it could be useful in single player if you're trying to determine if there's a faraway area that you need to get to or not. Category 3, there is Force Chain of Lightning, which is a modification from Force Lightning. Basically, works somewhat the same, except it can now bounce off of different nearby enemies. Category 4, all of those powers are in Jedi Knight. There's nothing new there. So let's take a look at each of the new powers. We'll start with Force Push. As you can see, we're at Cloud City, and we're going to borrow Nick and Trent, and I'm just going to keep pushing them off over the edge. It's pretty straightforward. Kind of click, hold, target, and then release to push. Not much to it. Next up, projection. This power I kind of find useless, especially in multiplayer. You're not going to really find anyone who's going to fall for it. Yeah, it'll throw a couple jabs, but you can walk right through it and someone will move on. Of course, Nick here will keep playing with it. But it may work for single player, but multiplayer, not really. Next up is Saber Throw. Not much to it. You throw your lightsaber for a ranged attack. If you're a Jedi in personalities and you happen to lose your lightsaber, it will return after a couple seconds. Next, we have Farsight. This is another power that I don't really feel is beneficial to multiplayer, but it is kind of fun to use in single player. You become a spirit, you leave your body, and you can explore the map. It's really useful if you're trying to explore an area you're not sure if you can reach or not. I guess it could be fun to use in multiplayer as well if you wanted to explore the map and weren't sure if you could get to a certain area or not. What does it look like in third person? As you can see, Trent here is using it and we're following it around. Kind of looks like a floating concussion bullet. Farsight has also been used in speedrunner strategy to help stop or propel their body. If you ever watch the Mysteries of the Sith speedrun, you'll see them use it there extensively. Lastly, you may have noticed that Force Farsight uses a goldish hue to the screen where Force Seeing uses a greenish hue. What does it look like when you use both of them? Well, here you go. This clip I slowed down just to show you how Chain of Lightning works, which is the last new or modified power. It will target your enemy and then it will bounce off and hit other nearby enemies. Personally, I prefer the way it works in Jedi Knight to Mysteries of the Sith. Personalities in Mysteries of the Sith is where things start to really get interesting. It's something that's not in Jedi Knight, and I think adds a really nice twist to multiplayer. As you can see, there are 4 classes. This is coming from an old Word document that I typed up years ago when Mysteries of the Sith was still somewhat being played online. I did this to help new players so they could decide which personality would fit their play style the best. However, as I went back, I noticed that there was an issue. The issue is speed. I wanted to test this out with Nick, and we found out that they all run at the same speed. So this information that I typed up, I got from the actual Mysteries of the Sith manual, and it does say that each of them would have different speeds. I reached out to ShinyQuagsire and Strike, who, if you've been around the Jedi Knight community, would recognize their names. ShinyQuagsire is working on a project called Open JKDF2 and Open MOTS. The project there is he's trying to reverse engineer the code from the EXE. Strike is working on a similar project, however his is different. He's trying to create it from scratch. But both of them are very familiar with COG, which is the internal system and how things work within Jedi Knight and Mysteries of the Sith. They took a look at the personalities for me and noticed that the speed is actually the same among all 4 of them. The programmers, probably an oversight, changed the hand movement speed. So in first person it may look like you're moving faster because your hands are moving faster, but in reality it doesn't affect how fast you run. So this was a little bit disappointing because all these years I really thought that the Scout was the fastest running one, and it turns out they're all the same. So now we know we can eliminate speed out of this equation on which personality works the best for you. Looking at this list though, if we ignore the speed part of it, you can see each class has its own advantage. Bounty Hunters have a max shield of 225. They start with 125, which is pretty good. They have 2 powers, defense and push. Defense will protect you from force powers. So if a Jedi tries to force pull you, they might get a battery instead of your actual weapon. Or if they try to use just destruct on you, you'll only get like a side effect of it, not a full-on blast of destruct. Defense 3 is pretty powerful. Bounty Hunters also start with a carbonite gun, which, as I showed you in the weapons section, is a very good gun to have. Jedi Knight is the next class. As you can see, it's a Jedi Knight and not a Jedi Master. Why does this make a difference? Well, in the 4th category, you're only able to select 1 power instead of 2. So that could sway someone from being a Jedi Knight or not, depending on how they want to play. Also, they start with a lightsaber and a briar. Fun fact about the lightsaber, they cannot lose it. Where the other classes, if they happen to pick up a lightsaber from a dead Jedi or from a lightsaber on the map that's placed there, they can lose it. The big benefit of Jedi Knight is force powers. They also get the standard health. 200 shields start with 100. Next, we have Scout, which is my personal favorite. They are the weakest. Their shields can only go to 150, and they start at 75. But they have some pretty good powers they can use. Jump, which is very important. Seeing, which is also very important. Persuasion will let you turn invisible, but if someone has Seeing, it basically makes it useless. And their defense is ranked at a level 2. They start off with the Stormtrooper rifle and a scope, which we determined earlier in the weapons section of this video that it does 2x damage. However, as a Scout, it actually does 4x damage. And just to rub it in a little bit more, their sniper rifles are silenced, where all the other classes you can hear it. So they have a nice little advantage right there. They also get to start with mines, which is really nice. If you have a nice little perch where you're sniping, you can defend the backdoor entrance with mines. I like playing a scout, and it's kind of funny because in any other video game that's out there that has sniper rifles, I'm pretty bad, not gonna lie. But for some reason, in Mysteries of the Sith, with its weird netcode and lag, I still do really well with the scout and the sniper rifle. I tend to make others pretty angry when they play against me. Last but not least, you have Soldier. He is your heavy weapons dude. Look at everything he gets to start with, including the rail det. It's pretty awesome. He also has a defense level of 4 against Force, which means he's almost untouchable to Force. Almost. He can still get hurt. The biggest weakness with Soldier would be the fact that he has no other powers. But the obvious advantage here being is his shields. They max out at 250, which is the highest of any class. And he starts at 125, which is the same as the Bounty Hunter. Definitely an advantage. The last thing worth noting about personalities are the skins. Each personality has its unique set of skins, which is pretty cool and kind of ahead of its time. With Bounty Hunter, you get skins like One Eye, Mandalore, Trandoshan, Rodian, and Abron Mar, plus a few others. With Jedi Knight, you get Kyle Katarn, Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Darth Vader. With Scout, you have the likes of a Tusken Raider, a Pirate, Jan Ors, Vemon, or Karabani. And with Soldier, you get your usual set: Rebel Soldier, Rebel Commander, Imperial Officer, Imperial Commander, Stormtrooper. Nice set to work with. If you happen to do a team battle in Mysteries of the Sith with personalities, you will get one skin from each group that has something special to it. For instance, if you remember doing team battles in Jedi Knight, you had all the different colored Kyle Katarns. That stays the same with Jedi Knight. You get your red, blue, green Kyle Katarn. With Bounty Hunter, it would be like a Mandalore with different colored shoulder pads based on whatever team you're on. With Scout, it's a Pirate. And with Soldier, I believe it's a Stormtrooper. So with multiplayer battles, Jedi Knight had your typical deathmatch style and capture the flag. Mysteries of the Sith has your typical deathmatch style, but adds a new game mode called Kill the Fool with the Ysalamiri. Kill the Fool is fun. The easiest way I can describe it as kill whoever is holding the ball, kind of like Halo's Oddball. The twist on it is whoever has the Ysalamiri is immune to Force but cannot use Force either. So this is kind of a big deal. Even ranged attacks, such as Force Destruct, will not affect you at all. There are several maps that are just Kill the Fool specific. Each one will have a tree in it with the Ysalamiri sitting on the tree, and you can hear it because it makes a little kind of like a cricket sound. The idea is you want to hold it the longest, but you can also get points for killing people while you have it. And I believe they can get points for killing you as well, but not many. So you want to hold it the longest, and typically it becomes a game of hide and seek. But you can't really hide too well because of the sound that the Ysalamiri makes. But it still makes a very, very fun game type, and I highly recommend playing it. It can get very intense very quickly. Next, I'd like to talk to you about colored lighting. Colored lighting was new for Mysteries of the Sith and was not in Jedi Knight. I have some screenshots here showing colored lighting enabled versus colored lighting not enabled, and I really feel like it sets the mood a lot better with colored lighting. I personally prefer it, and I think it looks absolutely stunning in some of the stock maps. And some of the add-on maps after the fact, people really nailed it. Of course, some took it to some extreme where it's not so great. But here with the stock maps, I think you can see and agree with me, hopefully, that it does look a lot better with colored lighting versus not colored lighting. Of course, it did become a bit of a meme in the Jedi Knight community, as you can see from this Al McDonald comic, where he basically makes fun of colored lighting in Mysteries of the Sith. Next, I have some examples of some add-on maps that do colored lighting really well. and then some that take it a bit too far and are a bit extreme and not executed very well. Mysteries of the Sith also added a really cool feature for multiplayer with a camera system. Some maps have a control panel that you can activate and kind of look around the entire map through a bunch of different cameras, try to spot enemies or maybe a new area to hide, or what really works out very well for is Kill the Fool. You can kind of look around and see if you can find the person who has the Ysalamiri. Very nice feature that was implemented. A lot of add-on Jedi Knight maps have this added into it, but Jedi Knight stock does not have it. Next up, I'm going to show you a little trick that you can do. Let's say you have the sniper rifle, and you're a Jedi or a Scout. If you use Force Seeing, you can see here, you can see everything full color instead of the red hue from the sniper scope. Now, let's say you're not a Jedi, or you're a bounty hunter or a soldier and you still want to be able to get better visibility than the red scope, you can pick up the IR goggles. Now, it's not quite perfect, but it's definitely better than just the red scope. As you can see, it's full lighting, but it's not full color. It's kind of like a greenish color. So here I'm showing how in Jedi Knight there's kind of a speedrunning trick where you can do a thing called water skimming, where you can kind of jump on the water and move along a lot faster. In Mysteries of the Sith, they changed the water physics, so you sink pretty much immediately as soon as you get in. This change is one that I'm not a fan of because it eliminates water skimming. As you can see here, I'm going to try to water skim, and I sink as soon as I try to do it. Now, you can try to time it right and sometimes get it, like I got here, but for the most part, it does not work very well. You have to try really hard to get it to work right, and it's not easy by any stretch. But just wanted to show off how the water physics changed, and I'm going to show an example here where I'm at the bottom, and our good friend Nick is going to be at the top, and he's going to jump, and you're going to see how fast he sinks because of the difference in physics. Yeah. So where exactly does this put us, and what is kind of the point of this video? I think the point is I wanted to shed some light on Mysteries of the Sith. I feel like it's an underrated expansion pack. It barely ever gets talked about, and whenever we suggest to play it, typically get some kind of moaning or groaning from the multiplayer community because either they don't want to play it, or they've never played it, or they don't have it installed. And I think that's a little unfair because, me personally speaking, I had this game when it came out in 1998. In fact, I had the 2 big boxes. I didn't have the Darth Vader box that contained both games. And I beat Mysteries of the Sith, when I had it, when I was young, and I enjoyed it. I found it very hard, but it wasn't until around 2005, 2006 that I met someone by the name of Kurgan who insisted that I play it with him online. So we kind of had like a little bit of a resurgence of Mysteries of the Sith, and we were going pretty much every day playing this game on his dedicated server. It was a really good time, and it really got me to appreciate the game and personalities and the new weapons. I think back to the 90s, and I think about games that had expansion packs, and really, games from my youth, I think about Warcraft 2 and StarCraft, and both of those had absolutely stellar expansion packs. Beyond the Dark Portal added heroes, it added a new map set, fixed bugs, and then you have StarCraft Brood War, which added all kinds of new units, added a whole bunch of new maps, You know, and both of them added campaigns. And I really think about it, and Blizzard really could not be touched when it comes to expansion packs. In the 90s, they really had it down, and I think that this was a pretty solid expansion pack for Jedi Knight, but it does have a few bugs. You know, if I were to list out a pros and cons, I would say, you know, pros, new weapons, new force powers, new levels, colored lighting, personalities. The cons being no live action cutscenes, 8-bit sounds, no 16-bit sounds, no water skimming, and then obviously the programming bug that we found. Here we are almost 25 years later, and we just find out about it that there actually aren't different speeds for the personalities. And it's unfortunate that that's what happened. But overall, I think that Mysteries of the Sith deserves to get some recognition, and it deserves to be played, and I really urge anyone who still enjoys Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 to really give Mysteries of the Sith a chance. There are things that we can do to fix some of these things. You know, the 8-bit sounds, there is a mod out there that imports all of Jedi Knight's sounds to the 16-bit sounds into Mysteries of the Sith. Obviously, it won't get everything because of Mara Jade's voice and Kylo Katarn's voice are new. Also, the new enemies have different voices. But that would cover about 80 to 85% of the sounds. And then, as for the live-action cutscenes, you know, they included in the Mysteries of the Sith game files the actual cutscenes that you can load up as a level. And maybe at some point someone, I know Edward from the editing community, said that he has a version of it where it plays in the game like a regular cutscene instead of a recorded version of the cutscene. So it would be higher resolution and you would have colored lighting. Overall, I really enjoy Mysteries of the Sith. It makes me sad that it gets so much hate. But then I also think back to other games. You know, everyone praises the original Doom. It's an awesome game, don't get me wrong. But I always preferred Doom 2. And now I'm finding out that Doom 2 has a lot of hate, which I never knew about. People say that it plays nothing more than a lazy expansion pack because all it did was add one gun and a couple enemies, which I think is completely unfair. I love Doom 2, and if I'm going to pick between the games, I'm going to pick Doom 2 over Doom 1. Is it the same situation with Jedi Knight and Mysteries of the Sith? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. But I appreciate Mysteries of the Sith, and I really hope that others will give it a chance, especially after this video. I know I only covered a brief amount of this. This video has already gone on a lot longer than I expected it to. There's probably a lot more I could cover, and maybe at some point I could get Strike or Shiny to do a little something with me to maybe compare some of the cog work and show the differences between these two, because there are some more in-depth technical differences, and there's a reason why Mysteries of the Sith has a lot more single-player levels than Jedi Knight does on JKDF2.net and Massassi Temple, because there was a lot more you could do with Mysteries of the Sith when it came to editing. But when it comes to multiplayer levels, Jedi Knight is still king. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Hope you all enjoyed. See you with the next one.